Over the course of 2 nights in April 1977, three teens had a mysterious encounter with some type of creature in the small suburban Boston town of Dover, Massachusetts. None of the teens were friends with the others, and each account described the creature they saw in much the same way. Small glowing eyes, no discernible mouth or nose, and an oddly shaped head. So what was this strange phenomenon they witnessed? Was it an extraterrestrial being, an unknown cryptid, or even a Native American water spirit? The possibilities abound as we delve into the mystery of the Dover Demon today on this very special two-part episode of The Weekly Strange. Hello and welcome to The Weekly Strange. I'm your host, Jon F. Merz, author, actor, adventurer. Today's episode is part one of a two-parter. Today, we'll discuss the facts surrounding the case of the Dover Demon, one of the strangest phenomenon in Massachusetts. Now, I'm fortunate that the town of Dover is actually quite close to where I live, so I know it fairly well. I don't go there often because honestly, there's absolutely nothing really to do there. The town is comprised mostly of large houses with lots of land and forested area. It's got a population currently of around 6,000 people these days, but back in 1977, it was a little less than that, perhaps around 4,700. It's a wealthy enclave of multi-million-dollar homes, lots of acreage, and not much else. There's really not much of a downtown. There aren't a whole lot of shops. It's tough to find pizza anywhere nearby. On April 21st, 1977, toward the end of the April school vacation week, teenager Bill Bartlett, 17, was driving to the neighboring town of Sherburne, Massachusetts, with two friends at about 10 p.m. on Thursday night. They were looking for a party, and not having had much luck so far, they decided to head to one town over. The trio were in Bill Bartlett's car on Farm Street in Dover, approaching Bridge Street at a speed of between 35 and 40 miles per hour. Bartlett, behind the wheel, suddenly spotted a creature standing atop a broken stone wall. According to Bartlett, it was small, with thin appendages, glowing eyes, and a large bulbous head seemingly too large for its body. He was about 10 feet away from the creature when he saw it initially, but neither of his friends said they saw it, and by now the car was beyond where Bartlett saw the thing. His friends, Mike and Andy, urged him to turn around and go back to the spot so they could see it. But once they did, the creature, whatever it was already gone. Later on, when he got home, Bill Bartlett would sketch the creature using his artistic skills. He would go on to become a skilled and pretty famous painter, actually, as a way of putting down on paper what was now firmly fixed in his mind. 2 hours later, 15-year-old John Baxter was walking home from his girlfriend's house on Miller Street, a long and winding road that is off of Farm Street. Now, having driven Miller Road, I can tell you there is no other outlet. You enter it from Farm Street, and it's about a solid mile or so further in. It just simply ends at the edge of woods. So for John Baxter to walk home, he didn't really have any choice but to walk the length of the street back to where it joins up with Farm Street, unless he wanted to cut through the woods if he knew a shortcut. Now, right where Miller Street meets Farm Street, on the left side of the road, there's a small pond. It would have been on his left as John Baxter was exiting. And on the other side is the stream that feeds it. As John Baxter approached Farm Street, he thought he saw a little kid approaching him and called out, but he gets no response. Instead, whatever he sees turns and scurries off into the woods. John gives chase and soon finds himself standing in the woods with an unknown creature staring back at him from beside a tree. John notes that it has orange glowing eyes, and at this point makes the wise decision to beat a hasty retreat. Jon also goes home and also makes a drawing of what he witnessed. Roughly 24 hours later, at midnight on Friday night, 15-year-old Abby Brabham is driving with her boyfriend Will Trainter along Springdale Avenue, which feeds into Farm Street. As she and her boyfriend are driving, Abby suddenly spots something weird standing by the side of the road. She points it out to her boyfriend, but he doesn't get much of a good look at it. The pair would later tell investigators that it was about the size of a goat and that the creature's eyes glowed green when caught in the headlights of Traintor's car. And this is really the only discrepancy between the three sightings. Bartlett and Baxter said the eyes glowed orange, while Brabham said that they were green. Otherwise, there's a remarkable consistency to the descriptions of the creature from all witnesses involved, and even more so when you take into account their individual sketches. Noted cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman actually interviewed all three of them within about a week of the sightings and found them all to be credible. But hold on. Before we simply assume that these teens were telling the truth, let's back up a bit and examine what else was going on at that time. First of all, April 1977 was 1 month before Star Wars: A New Hope opened in theaters. But the official trailer had been out for some time. Is it possible that the inspiration for the Dover Demon came from the trailer? Maybe. I found this shot of a Jawa that could account for the orange glowing eyes bit. But to be honest, I would have felt better if there was a clear shot of Figrin D'An, the frontman for the band from the Mos Eisley Cantina, which is kind of what these drawings of the Dover Demon actually remind me of. Unfortunately, there isn't a shot of him in the trailer, so, perhaps we can just rule that one out. Or can we? Because while most of the general public didn't get to see Star Wars until May of 1977, there was a number of exhibitor screenings in February of 1977. And these would be for friends, Fox executives, theater owners, managers. So is it possible that someone connected to the Dover Demon story was also connected to the entertainment industry in some fashion? Perhaps as the owner or an executive in a theater chain who took along one of his kids to the screening? Is it possible that this kid then came home with his brain blasted apart by what he'd just seen on the big screen, like I did, and set about creating some sort of elaborate hoax ahead of the film's release? Now, obviously, trying to piece that together would involve a lot more research and delving into records, and honestly, it's something that's a bit outside the scope of this episode. But I do think it's at least interesting enough to chase down, if for no other reason than to rule it out as a possibility. Second, the reports all mention that the teens didn't know each other. But is that actually true? I mean, sure, they may not have moved in the same social circles. Bartlett was 17 at the time. Baxter and Brabham were 15. But here's the thing. In a town as small as Dover was and still is, are there really such things as strangers? Wouldn't these teens at least have a passing knowledge of each other? Certainly Baxter and Brabham would have, presumably being in the same grade in school. And as anyone who grows up in a small town knows, you pretty much start school and graduate school with the same crop of kids that you started with. Even if they weren't best friends, that might have worked even better for the purposes of pulling off an elaborate hoax like the Dover Demon. Now, before I get all the crazy comments, I'm not trying to throw water on this story and dampen anyone's enthusiasm for it. Hell, I happen to love stuff like this. But I also happen to hate when things get overly sensationalized because it just compromises the integrity of the story. If we start insisting that we should just believe everything, then that works counter to using science and rational thought to either prove or disprove these phenomena. With that said, these three incidents are the crux of the accounts that make up the tale of the Dover Demon. 3 witnesses over 2 nights. That's it. Well, unless you count the possibility that Bartlett thinks he may have had another encounter a year later when he was sitting in a parked car with his girlfriend and something knocked on the side of it. Bartlett says it looked like a little kid, but he also only got a quick glance at it before it disappeared off into the woods. Now, if I'm being honest, this is the other thing that bugs me about this story. There are only 3 witnesses to it. And yes, their accounts are remarkably similar and consistent. Bill Bartlett even wrote on his drawing that, quote, "I, Bill Bartlett, swear on a stack of Bibles that I saw this creature." And when the teens were interviewed, all of them held up to the scrutiny placed on them by authorities. Bill Bartlett to this day says that the legend of the Dover demon has pretty much haunted him for his entire life, and in many ways, he wishes he'd never seen the thing in the first place. But only 3 witnesses in almost 50 years? I don't know. I mean, yeah, Dover is a small town, but there are plenty of people out in its woods. As we'll see in part 2 of this episode, there are some great hiking trails that will go down as part of my investigation. And certainly, if there was some sort of cryptid living in the woods of Dover, Massachusetts, someone would have seen them by now, right? I mean, especially since the 3 encounters didn't even take place deep in the woods, but rather by the sides of roads and near water. I mean, I've driven that same stretch of road at night, as have many, many other people, and yet no other sightings since 1977? It's definitely strange. So with that backstory and a few musings by yours truly, what exactly could the Dover demon be, if it exists? There's a range of possibilities. The first is, like we've been talking about, it's some type of cryptid living either in the woods or in the water of Dover. Another theory is that it's some type of supernatural water spirit that inhabits the water and only comes out rarely. Now, there's Native American lore that talks about something called a Managishi, which are water spirits that are generally benign. But the problem with this is that Managishi are typically described as having hairy faces, which sort of rules out the Dover demon given the fact that none of the witnesses said it was hairy at all. Quite the contrary. And then there's the idea that the Dover demon was actually an alien being. Now, going back to research UFO UAP sightings in Massachusetts in 1977 doesn't come up with much. Although there is an interview with one Captain Neil Daniels, who flew for United Airlines. Just 5 weeks before the Dover Demon incident in March, Captain Daniels spotted a UFO off his left wing as he was flying from San Francisco to Boston. The sighting occurred close to Albany, New York, at about 8 o'clock in the evening. And then there are a few other scattered reports of UFO UAP activity in the general area of Massachusetts, but nothing really close to Dover. But then again, as anybody knows, once you're up in the air, distances aren't all that much, and it's conceivable that a UFO near Albany could be over Dover, Massachusetts in a matter of seconds, depending on its propulsion. All right, there's the backstory on the Dover Demon. You've heard the reports and the theories about what it might be, including the possibility that it could just be a clever hoax. Now it's time to get out into the field and look at these locations for anything else that might help form a more educated theory about what the Dover Demon could be. In part 2 of this episode, which will be out within a week or so, we'll hit the ground in Dover, Massachusetts. We're going to visit all of the locations where the witnesses claimed to have seen the creature, as well as a few others, and see for ourselves what it may have been like driving those dark, winding roads back in 1977. Stay tuned. And that's going to do it for this episode of The Weekly Strange. If you enjoyed the show, I would sincerely appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my new uploads. Also, please drop me a comment below the video. Let me know what you thought of it. And feel free to reach out to me via email at theweeklystrange@gmail.com. Yay, we have a new address, which is a little bit easier to remember than the other one. And for now, thank you so much for watching and listening. Have a wonderful night. I will see you next time.